From PRX, it's... This week, Chef Kenji López-Alt.
Hers is mostly broccoli, seasoned with a little cheese. And mine is basically just like you went to the stadium and pumped the nacho cheese sauce into it and garnish it with a floret.
Music critic Ann Powers.
I didn't know if her legend would obscure her as a subject to me. So I actually kind of made that part of the book.
With music from Khatumu and our fabulous house band. I'm your announcer, Elena Passarello, and now, the host of Livewire, Luke Burbank!
Hey, thank you so much, Elena Passarello. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into Livewire from all over the country. And thanks to everybody for coming out to the Nordstrom Recital Hall here at Benaroya in Seattle. All right, it is no secret that times are tough out there. The news is not great nationally, globally, but we here at Livewire are of the opinion that there are, in fact, still a few okay things happening here on planet Earth, and we spend most of our week looking for them. Sometimes it takes most of the day, but we find them and we present them to you in a little segment we call The Best News We've Heard All Week. All right, Elena, what is the best news that you heard all week?
Okay, Brazilian best news.
Okay.
Catholic best news.
All right.
Sisterly best news.
Love it. 3 for 3.
We're going to Ponta Grossa, Brazil, where there are two nuns named, I hope I get these pronunciations correct, Sister Marisel Cassiano and Sister Marissa de Paula. They actually work in the community. They work a lot with troubled youth. They work with addiction. And apparently in this part of Brazil, Ponta Grossa, there is a television program called Pai Atero. And it looks kind of like, remember Church Chat with Dana Carvey?
Oh, sure.
Kind of like studio lighting and like a little couch. And they're holding handheld mics. And so the two sisters are there as guests. And they're being interviewed by the host, who's a deacon. And the subject turns to religious callings, being called to a certain kind of action for faith and what that feels like. And one of the sisters, Sister Marisel, says, oh man, I wrote a song about this. She stands up and she starts singing. And then Sister Marissa stands up and starts dancing, kind of like pop lock kind of moves.
Nice.
Like she's doing like step and kick out. And I was like, okay. And it's very appropriate, these hip-hop coded moves, because then Sister Marisel starts beatboxing.
Nice.
So this nut is going like... The deacon host gets up and they start dancing, and it is so full of joy and glorious. Like, it really is just people like moving their bodies in this really happy way. Sister Marisel says that she sees beatboxing as a tool that God uses to reach the hearts of the people we work with.
Aww.
Now they're working with a lot more people now. Sister Marissa, the dancer, does not have Instagram, but Sister Marisela does. I hope I got that right. She now has 100,000 followers on Instagram. Thanks to people like Viola Davis, who sent it out.
Nice.
Whoopi Goldberg saw it, and Whoopi Goldberg recently said on The View that this was Sister Act come to life.
Beautiful.
So that's the best news I heard this week.
That's amazing. The best news that I saw all week actually takes us to Georgia. I'm wondering if you know where this place is. It's is it Decula, Georgia?
Decula, Georgia.
Decula,
That's in Gwinnett
Georgia.
County, where I'm from.
Okay, well.
They were our rivals in high school.
Okay, well.
What happened in Decula?
It's a very sweet story about your rivals, and specifically about a guy named Michael Baker. Okay, Michael Baker was graduating high school, and he was in his whole robe, and he got some special kind of medal for some academic achievement or whatever. And as he was getting off stage, he got a call on his phone because he also worked at the Burger King, and it was slammed.
Oh, no.
There was like a huge line, and his coworkers were like, Michael, could you get over here, please? So while all of his friends were going and partying, the night of graduation, he was at the Burger King, like keeping the line moving and helping out his coworkers. And a mother of one of the other graduates of the high school came through the drive-thru at the Burger King.
She was one of the reasons why it was so slammed.
Exactly. Yeah. And she noticed that he was still there in his graduation uniform with the little headset on, like, welcome to Burger King. And she just thought that this was such a really sweet thing that this kid did.
Yeah.
I say kid, anybody younger than me feels like a kid. But
Yeah.
and so she thought, I bet you that he could use a little blessing. How about we start a GoFundMe page for him? To pay for college or other things that he might need. He was just showing himself to be such a nice young person. The GoFundMe has raised, at last check, $199,000.
199? Wow.
190. You see the headline? The article I have, I crossed out 180K because I checked it right before the show.
And it went back up.
It's like, it's going up. It's at like 199. Like this, it's going to be $200,000.
Wow.
For this kid, and it's going to be for his education.
Wow.
I don't know what college costs anymore.
Yeah,
but let's just say
probably.
it's a very, very good start on things for this kid.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
Michael Baker being rewarded for his service to his friends at Burger King. That's the best news that I heard all week. Our next guest is a chef, food scientist, culinary innovator, internet star, and author of the New York Times bestseller, The Food Lab. He's also a James Beard Award winner, and honestly is pretty much the guy to ask if you want to know where to get a bagel here in Seattle, which, because I'm from Seattle, I can't say the word bagel correctly. He's also the co-host of the hit podcast, The Recipe, along with Deb Perlman. We are so happy to have him back on the show. Please welcome Kenji López-Alt to Livewire. Kenji, welcome back to Livewire.
Thanks for having me again.
The last time you and I were hanging out, it was for my other job, my TV job, and we were driving around South Seattle, and we were like checking out different teriyaki spots, which you've kind of become known for really being very thorough in your exploration of the teriyaki food scene here in Seattle. I think at one time you were going to try to eat at every single place.
I'm still trying to, yeah.
Have you gone, since you and I last had teriyaki, have you still been going out and exploring?
I have. I mean, when I started it, I was going to about one per day, and then after a week, I slowed down to a couple per week. Now I'm at maybe 1 or 2 per month, but I'm up in the 30s now out of slightly less than 90 places. There's around 90 places in Seattle, and that's not counting like the east side.
And like Seattle teriyaki is kind of its own thing, right? What makes it different than things like it you could get in other parts of the country? Yeah,
well, Seattle, I mean, teriyaki as we know it in the U.S., chicken teriyaki was invented in Seattle by a Japanese immigrant in the 70s. Toshi, he still cooks.
I was up at his spot.
In Mill Creek.
In Mill Creek, and he is there 7 a.m, just cutting up chicken and cooking rice and doing it. Yeah,
so he invented the style of chicken teriyaki that we know here. So the chicken thighs that are marinated, sliced, sort of sweet and savory glaze, and that became sort of I'm from New York, so I equate it to like a New York slice of pizza where you ask someone, what's your favorite pizza shop? And it's like the one that's down the street from you, right? Because there's a pizza shop in every neighborhood. And so there's a teriyaki shop in every neighborhood. And those all started with Toshi's place. And so the chain, there's a lot of teriyaki shops called Toshi's now, which at some point were all franchises of his original shop. And then eventually they all separated into their own individually owned locations. So the Toshi's are not related to each other anymore. Even though some of them have the same logo and the same typeface and everything, they're all unrelated to each other. And Toshi himself has his place up in Mill Creek now.
Is there a cultural significance to the food, to the folks who are making it, to sort of how it fits into the Pacific Northwest?
Well, I mean, I think like a lot of immigrants, they found the jobs they could, and a lot of that is in food. So that's why there was this proliferation of Chinese restaurants across the country. But yeah, it's and you see it still as a largely an immigrant owned and immigrant-run operation. These days, you'll find teriyaki originally Japanese or Japanese-American. Although these days, I think you'll find most of them are not actually Japanese-run anymore. There's a lot of shops that are run Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese immigrants, and oftentimes what you'll find is that there's the the basic teriyaki menu that has your chicken and your gyoza and your spicy chicken, but then there's also going to be bibimbap, or there might be there might be like General Tso's chicken, or there might be banh mi and pho, and generally those are the things that the people who are running the restaurant, that's their food, and the teriyaki is there because people expect the teriyaki to be there.
I see. When we were out eating teriyaki, I think there was at least 2 groups of people who approached you to say, "Oh man, we're fans of your videos and the things," and we kind of look for places that you're recommending and stuff like that. What's it like for you out in the Seattle area when because I watch a lot of your videos where you're you're set up at a picnic table or something, and you're about to try something. Are people coming up to you and like interrupting the filming process, or are you an object of a certain amount of attention when you go to a place?
Sometimes, I mean, more and more increasingly, but it's like a really nice self-feeding cycle. I'm also a self-feeding cycle, but the process itself is a self-feeding cycle because the more you share information with people, the more people are like, oh, you should check out this teriyaki. I was sitting at a restaurant in Eastlake 2 nights ago, and this guy walks past the table as he was leaving, like winks at me and puts a piece of paper down in front of me. And I read it, and it just says, like, check out, I have a picture of it. I can't remember which one, but I wrote it down, but he's like, check out this teriyaki joint. And that's all it said. And so,
Wow.
I get really good recommendations because the people who follow my stuff also want to give me advice, and they tend to have tastes that align with mine. And so I get a lot of good recommendations, and that makes, my job, which is just going around eating things that other people cooked, a lot easier, yeah.
The last time somebody handed me a note in a restaurant and I turned it over, I woke up 4 days later in Reno with no memory of what had happened. So teriyaki is a much better outcome. It's Livewire Radio from PRX. We are talking to Kenji López-Alt. We're at Benaroya Hall in Seattle this week. We've got to take a very quick break, but stay with us. We will be right back. Welcome back to Livewire from PRX. We're at the Nordstrom Recital Hall at Benaroya in Seattle this week. And we are talking to Kenji López-Alt, chef and food writer and a food personality. I was watching a video on your YouTube channel where you were talking about your sobriety. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering about alcohol and food are often so intertwined. It's this wine with this pasta or whatever. Has now being a person who doesn't drink, has that changed your relationship with food at all?
It was something when I realized I needed to stop drinking. That was one of my concerns. Although, alcoholics, when they are trying to quit drinking, they'll come up with many excuses not to.
It's going to ruin the pasta if I stop having a cask of wine every night.
But it is like an intense part of the industry where both in terms of the idea that when people go out to eat, they are, the wine, the drinks are part of that experience. And so as a cook, or as a restaurateur, you should be knowledgeable in that, which means tasting it. And it's also, also just the lifestyle. Yeah. It is like, cooks and musicians, I think, tend to drink a lot, But, I quickly found out that, in fact,
sometimes they laugh for reasons we don't understand.
There's just a lot of cooks and musicians
Yeah.
in this audience, I think.
But, I mean, one of the things that you mentioned in that video, Kenji, was that for you, when you really got sober, was because of talking to some other people in the industry,
Yes.
other chefs, who were both people who were sober. I have family members that are in the restaurant business who also don't drink alcohol. Do you?
Right.
I mean, it's hard for you to speculate on this, but do you feel like there is some sort of a movement with at least more mindfulness around drinking or sobriety in the
absolutely.
food industry?
Absolutely. You know, I think the food industry has changed a lot for the better over, you know, the 25 years since I started cooking in restaurants. Both in terms of just care for the mental health of people working in restaurants, the abuse that goes on. I mean, it still happens, but it's a lot better than it used to be. And also is in terms of the substance abuse. And yeah, there's a lot of conversation. I don't think there's ever been a better time to be a non-drinker. For so, like, you know, my career has been a series of real lucky breaks, and I chose to go sober at the right time because I don't know if you've had like the non-alcoholic beers or gone out to a restaurant recently. Every restaurant has a really robust, really good non-alcoholic cocktail program, a non-alcoholic wine and beer program. So it's a real good time to be a non-drinker right now.
I've been enjoying your podcast, The Recipe, with Deb Perlman. For folks that haven't heard it, what's the premise of the show? I guess it's kind of right there in the title.
You know, Deb came out with a book a couple years ago, and she and I have sort of been in each other's orbits for years because we both started writing recipes online around the same time. And both of us have our focus is home cooks, but we have real different approaches to how we bring recipes to home cooks and how we think about developing a recipe. And so, yeah, we thought, hey, you know, like we should do a show because we have overlapping audiences. We're trying to solve the same problem, but we're solving that problem in really different ways. And so the premise of the show is that we pick a recipe that we've both worked on, say like macaroni and cheese, right? And then I'll make her version of the recipe, she'll make my version of the recipe, and then we discuss how the development process. You know, the idea is like to take a peek under the kitchen hood.
Oh, there you go. Why did you dedicate an entire episode to broccoli cheese soup? That seemed left field to me.
I mean, people devote entire bowls to just melted cheese and broccoli, right? No, because it's a very popular recipe. Like we both have broccoli cheese soup recipes. Our recipes couldn't be more different. They're very, very different from each other. Hers is mostly broccoli, seasoned with a little cheese, and mine is basically just like you went to the stadium and pumped the nacho cheese sauce into it and like garnish it with a floret. But no, broccoli cheese soup is really popular. You know, thank Panera.
Right, well, that's it. I think they've really kind of moved the needle on America's appetite for.
Well, it was Panera, and it was George Bush, George Bush Sr., who, when he became president, famously said, like, "I'm president now, Mom. You can't make me eat broccoli." And then I think Campbell's then developed broccoli cheese soup to capitalize on the publicity that.
I remember when that was an extreme thing for a U.S. president to say.
Oh yeah.
He's not having broccoli.
It's like long for the days of vegetables and canned soups.
I would crawl across broken glass to have that be the main political scandal we're dealing with. You also talk on the podcast about nachos, and what I was struck by was you were talking about the origin of nachos, and I think it maybe goes to sort of credited with being a place in Texas. I had read in the LA Times years ago a totally apocryphal history of nachos.
All these stories are
about
apocryphal.
a particular restaurant in LA that Jack Nicholson used to go to, and the woman who was credited as inventing them had been like trying to find something to make for people. This was printed in the Los Angeles Times, and I was telling everyone this story that nachos were invented in LA. Does the success that is nachos have many mothers?
These stories are always like somebody who's part of the restaurant trying to feed someone when there's apparently no food in the restaurant. We ran out of everything. What can we do? All we have is the chips and cheese and beans and everything, exactly what it takes to make something delicious. Right? I'd never heard that story. No, the only story I heard was about Ignacio, nicknamed Nacho, and he invented it because American tourists, I think, were coming to his restaurant. Or maybe this is the Caesar salad story. I don't know.
I heard.
But Someone was
that
coming
in
to his
Tijuana?
restaurant and he ran out of ingredients and made nachos.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Same story with buffalo wings. Same story with onion dip. It's all the same.
Okay, I was going through some of your older New York Times cooking section columns that just each one, I don't want you to feel like you have to give away the milk for free, but I did want to ask you some of the things that are posed in these columns. For instance, the burger that you were unable to improve, the Oklahoma onion burger.
Oh yeah, well, the Oklahoma onion burger is a burger that, like a lot of good foods, was born of frugality, and so during the Depression in Oklahoma, they replaced a lot of the meat in a burger with a pile of onions, and so an Oklahoma onion burger, you take a very very small ball of beef, you put a big pile of thinly shaved onions onto a griddle, and then you smash the beef down into it, or sometimes the other way around, and you let that cook, and then you flip it over, and what you end up with is these onions that have this kind of array of textures and flavors. So the ones that are like hanging over the edge get really dark and frizzled, and then you get these kind of caramelized onions that are along the top, and then there's these kind of softer steamed onions and a little bit of crunch in them in the middle. So you get like a ton of onion flavor and not a ton of beef flavor, but it's real delicious.
Speaking of onions, and this is the final question because I'm 48 years old and I still don't know how to do this. What is the best way to cut an onion?
So I learned how to cut an onion from Jacques Pepin's book, La Technique. And he does the classic technique where you split an onion in half, you take off the peel. He always recommends taking off the peel plus one layer on the inside. And then you hold your knife vertically and you make a series of vertical cuts up and down. And then you hold your knife sideways and make a couple of horizontal cuts. And then you rotate it and slice across those, right? That's the classic sort of French method, how they teach you to do it at culinary schools. Then Alton Brown, he recommends slicing radially because onions are radially symmetric, right? So it makes more sense to slice them radially. To me, I was like, okay, so which one is actually the best method? So I had a friend of mine build a mathematical model of an onion. And we tested a variety of angles and a variety of slice sizes. We tested whether adding a horizontal slice would make a difference or not. And so basically what we did was we calculated, first of all, the method that would give you the most number of dice using the fewest number of strokes, so the efficiency of the method, and then we also counted the standard deviation of a cube size to tell you what how even your dice was going to be. And what we found is that if you take your half onion, right, and you place it on the table and you call the height of it, so the radius of the onion, you call that 1, okay? You angle your knife at a point under the table, about 0.6 under the table. So if you aim your knife down to there, it's not quite straight up and down, and it's not quite radially symmetric. It's somewhere in between. If you just kind of fudge it somewhere in between, that is the most efficient way.
Is that now how you cut onions,
yes,
like at home?
Yes, that's how I do it, yeah. I follow my own advice usually. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're glad to have it because you sure know a lot. Kenji López-Alt, thank you so much for coming on Livewire. That was Kenji López-Alt right here on Livewire. His podcast, The Recipe, which he hosts with Deb Perlman from the Smitten Kitchen, is available wherever you get your podcasts. Livewire is brought to you by Powell's Books, a Portland institution since 1971. Powell's offers a selection of new and used books in stores and online at powells.com. You're tuned into Livewire. I'm Luke Burbank here with Elena Passarello. Okay, each week on the show, we ask the Livewire audience a question. And this week, we were inspired by an upcoming guest's career as a legendary music journalist. So, Elena, what did we ask the Livewire audience?
We asked them to tell us about the most memorable concert they ever saw.
Wow. Okay. We actually went out into the audience at a recent live recording of the show to get some answers. Here is what folks said. This was Marcia.
Here was my most memorable. I was a teenager and I went to a Grateful Dead concert. And I didn't know the brownies were laced with pot. And I slept through the whole Grateful Dead concert. laid out.
So I guess you didn't remember the concert.
No, but it's certainly memorable that I didn't remember it.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's the best way to experience a Grateful Dead concert.
I never quite connected with the Grateful Dead, but I know that their fans are legion and they really, really like it, whether they're conscious for the concert or not.
I think the Grateful Dead exists on both sides of a person's consciousness. You know, like I think they are dream logic. So
Wow.
well done. Well done.
That's intense. How many brownies did you have before we started recording today?
I just stuck like 6 of them into a smoothie.
Just the right amount. Here is a very memorable concert that listener Frank attended at one point.
I saw Sufjan Stevens at the Aladdin Theater on my 16th birthday. Wow. And I was sitting in the front row. He sang the Ballad of John Wayne Gacy Jr., and I had a moment of feeling deep panic that this was an unsafe individual, which was, that's good performance right there. Right. It was a good show.
Unclear how many brownies Frank had consumed before the Sufjan show. Frank's premise is that because he was concerned about what Sufjan Stevens, the singer, was going to get up to, that indicated that the performance was actually very good, that Sufjan had him feeling a little bit on edge. Now, the song, of course, The Ballad of John Wayne Gacy, for being kind of on a dark topic, it's a very beautiful song.
Oh, yes.
All right, Caroline had a memorable concert experience. Let's take a listen to this.
I saw James Taylor at Tanglewood. I'm originally from the Boston area. And we had lawn seats, which was lovely.
I feel like if you go to Tanglewood at any time, day or night, James Taylor might be there. Just kind of hanging. Feels
just
he
tangling in the wood, you know.
Just tangling
like
out there. I feel like he might live there. It just seems it's very James Taylor coded, as the people would say these days.
But we very illegally snuck our way into the front row after intermission, and we were feet or inches away from him and Carole King and John Travolta and all these ridiculous people that they brought on stage.
I see.
John Travolta. He did
Right?
have a single. Did you know like gonna let her in? Like you
John
know,
Travolta had a single. I was unaware of that.
I feel like everybody in the late 70s, you know, like Lou Ferrigno, John Travolta,
Joe Piscopo.
yeah, they all had Bruce Willis.
And they were all at the James Taylor concert in
Yes,
Tanglewood.
they were
I
all.
have decided at my ripe old age of 49, Elena, I am done sneaking into the better seats than I have at concerts or sporting events. And here's why. I've realized I am unable to enjoy the rest of the performance because of my anxiety around getting kicked out of the place I'm not actually supposed to be.
Yes.
I'm better off just being in my original seats, view obstructed, and relaxed.
That's right. Have a brownie, stay in the cheap seats, enjoy yourself, Burbank. Just go for it.
All right. Thank you to everyone who answered our question about a memorable concert. Our next guest is one of America's best-loved music critics, speaking of music. With stints at NPR, the LA Times, and the New York Times, among other places, her body of work, which is writing about musicians, has made her such a legend in her own right that it probably came in handy when she set her sights on a book about one of music's greatest legends, Joni Mitchell. The result of that project is the book Traveling on the Path of Joni Mitchell, which Publishers Weekly called a dazzling portrait of a legendary musician. Ann Powers joined us when we were in Seattle at Benaroya Hall earlier this year. Take a listen. Ann Powers, welcome to Livewire.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Can you take me back to the day that you got a phone call from a book editor in New York?
Oh, yes.
And they said, we would love it if you would write a book about Joni Mitchell. And you said you had to take a walk around the block to think about it?
I definitely did. I mean, I'm a Joni fan. All of us, I mean, who isn't a Joni fan, right? We've all had our moment. We love Blue. We love Hajira. But I looked at, tackling a subject like that as similar to trying to say, climb Mount Rainier or something. It was very daunting to think about really taking on a legend like that. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to do it. I didn't know if her legend would obscure her as a subject to me. So I actually kind of made that part of the book, my journey toward figuring out how to take into account what we as fans have made Joni, what the culture has made Joni, and then how she reacted and became the artist she is through that process.
I mean, it sounds like in the book that because you're a music writer, you were, of course, aware of the impact of Joni Mitchell, but that, like, she wasn't maybe your number one just because of some thoughts about her, and she had a lot of success early, and she sort of looked a certain way, and you said you didn't really vibe with that part of her career?
Yeah, well, first of all, given just my age and when I grew up in Seattle, you know, I was a new wave girl, so really, like, Kate Bush was my pinnacle. Yeah. But, you know, a thing that happened is when I started on this book, I got into the early Joni records, and I suddenly was like, oh my God, Kate Bush took so much from Joni Mitchell and I never realized it. So then I felt kind of bad. But so that was part of it. And then also, yeah, you're right. Like, I write in the introduction about how she was daunting to me, partly because of her image, her persona, and, as you say, her looks. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine, the great Gail Wald. She's also a writer. And I'm like, I can't write about Joni. She's such a prom queen. I mean, she's too, the cheekbones, she's, you know, I can't relate. She's too beautiful. But what I figured out was she had just the same anxieties and questions about herself that I have. And she wrote that right into her songs.
You made the decision to not try to interview Joni Mitchell for this book.
Yeah.
Because basically it sounds like you were afraid of falling in love with her.
In a way, yeah. I was afraid of being dominated by her. You know, I just felt like I know from others, friends of mine, people I know who've written a lot about her, that she's so charismatic. But it's not just that. Anyone who writes a biography, once you are connected to your subject, whether it is officially authorized or not, in that way, then it is really their book. But I wanted it to be a book that was about the world that Joni Mitchell made and the world that made Joni Mitchell. And there are great books out there that are simply interviews with her. There's a fabulous book called Joni on Joni by Malcolm Marome. I highly recommend it. Michelle Mercer's book, Will You Take Me As I Am, David Yaffe's Reckless Daughter. Those books exist. So I wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
But I will say, I did interview many people around Joni, everyone from David Crosby, R.I.P., to Graham Nash, to Joni's ex, Larry Klein. So I really, have a lot of research in the book. It's not just me rambling on about my thoughts.
Well, no, it's the right amount of that and the right amount of information about this person's life. One of the things that seems to come to light in this book is that Joni Mitchell is maybe not always the most accurate storyteller on the life of Joni Mitchell.
Yes.
For instance, it sounds like she had polio as a child in Saskatoon, Canada, and credits it with why and how she became an artist.
In some ways, yes. Her biographer, David Yaffe, really emphasizes that in his book, too, in Reckless Daughter. It's an excellent book, by the way.
But it seems like you were a little suspicious about if it actually played the role in her life artistically that she thought she did or that biographers thought it did.
Yeah, well, as Michelle Mercer, all of us Joni writers, we all hang out in a little club.
Yeah.
So anyway, as Michelle Mercer has written, Joni already was on the path to be an artist before she got polio. She was interested in dance. She was interested in painting. She wanted to write, So I think she was already on the creative path. But what going through the experience of polio gave her, I think, was this incredible determination. This is the kind of trauma that can make or break a person, and absolutely no judgment on what happens to you after you go through such a trauma. But for her, I think it made her determined to be great. If her life was going to go on, she had to learn to walk again. She had an aneurysm much later in life, and that was the third time she had to learn to walk. This is one tough woman, and that experience was the beginning of her sense of herself as needing to make a difference in the world, needing to be a genius, a great artist, not just some lady playing in a coffee house on a Thursday night at 7 p.m., but a very important artist.
Another sort of big development in her early life was that she was pregnant and she gave her daughter up for adoption.
Yes.
And wrote about it in her music, including the song Kelly Green.
Little Green. Yes.
And how did that impact her as an artist going forward?
Well, Luke, I'm also an adoptive parent myself, and I'm very lucky to have an open adoption. My daughter's birth mother, we are close to her. In fact, she's coming to visit us this week here in Seattle.
Nice.
And my daughter's coming out too. So this is a very emotional subject for me. And I want to say, I think only the people involved in an adoptive family can truly speak for that family.
Sure.
But after she was reunited with her daughter, Joni said, I was hanging out with Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock recording a session, and they said to me, something is different about your voice. Your voice is fuller. I mean, this is Joni is the doyenne by now. She is in midlife. She said, something in me, a loss, a hole was filled by this. I think the loss and grief you go through as a birth mother, only a birth mother can speak of it, but it's so deep and so real. And for Joni, that went into her music. You know, there is a kind of a melancholy in her music, and there's a depth in her music that is in part related to having entrusted her child in adoption. At the same time, the ongoing theme of like, what does it mean to be a free woman? What does it mean to be mobile? What does it mean to be ambitious? All of that. This is what women have dealt with so often, and especially in the 60s and 70s during those days when women's liberation was happening at its full flower. This was so relevant to her personally, partly because of her status as a birth mother, but also just because she was a young woman at that time.
Right. You write in the book about where she fit into and maybe didn't fit into feminism. Would it be second wave feminism,
Yes.
sort of? But the idea that maybe that movement was about going out and gaining equality versus ruminating in sadness, and she was ruminating a lot of sadness.
Well, the thing about the rumination, I think that's related to another phenomenon of the 70s, which is everybody got a therapist in the 70s, you know? Everybody was seeking enlightenment. Everybody was into self-help, including Joni. And so she kind of gave us the soundtrack to her inner thoughts, and that was very powerful. Like if you know that song Coyote, for example, you know how it just goes on and on and on. Like nobody can sing that song because like, where do you breathe? Yeah. And that was partly because she is kind of creating what it sounds like inside of our heads, you know? And how that applies for women at that time, I think, is that women were trying to figure out how to reconcile their desire for intimate relationships, heterosexual women in particular, with men who, you know, maybe didn't value their freedom that much. I'm just saying a few of them might not have, you know, and in a world that didn't value that. And she wanted to figure out how can I love and be loved and still be that singular artist I want to be and move around, you know, and go on the road. And she was that exemplar of that. I think so many people related to that.
We're talking to Ann Powers about her book, Traveling on the Path of Joni Mitchell. You'd be remiss if you didn't talk about it in the book, which you do, and we would be remiss if we didn't talk about it here, but...
I know what's coming.
Yes, you mentioned Wayne Shorter and Charles Mingus, and Joni Mitchell's love of jazz and jazz fusion and her embrace of Black American culture, which also showed up in a pretty bizarre kind of phase of her life and career where she was regularly performing and showing up in blackface.
Not regularly, but she created a character. So as she told it, one October, she was walking down Sunset Boulevard, or was it Hollywood Boulevard in LA, looking for a Halloween costume to go to a party at the home of Leland Sklar, the bassist, and she walks by a black man on the street. They kind of exchange a flirtatious look, and she felt like she was possessed by the spirit of this man, she said, and ended up putting on it, basically dressing in blackface, I would say, or passing as this character, whom she named Claude, and later named Art Nouveau. And this character is one that she wore at this costume party, but then later, on the cover of Don Juan's Reckless Daughter, the album, also twice in film. So you can see it very shortly in the Shadows and Light concert film. There's a tiny moment where you see Claude. And people have written about it in the past. She herself never talks about it at this point, really. But most people who have written about it or talked about it have kind of defended it and said, well, as a woman in a sexist world, she could relate to what black men were going through, or this is kind of a tribute to people whom she admired. But what I wanted to confront was, why did we all accept it? Why did everyone around her accept it, you know? And I didn't really ever come to like a firm conclusion. I had to confront my own complicated feelings about this part of her life. In the end, I mean, I think entitlement is very hard to shake. And even if you are, as Joni is, a very, very sympathetic and close friend to her collaborators who are not white, she loves the music, she understands it. It's easy to cross lines if no one is saying, hey, I'm calling you out. You know?
That doesn't certainly for you invalidate the rest of the music that she created and art that she created?
I think, you know, I'm going to refer to the great Claire Dieterer, who is a fabulous Seattle writer. And she has this wonderful concept in her book, Monsters. The concept is the stain. How do we deal with the artists we love making transgressions that we cannot accept? She says, do not necessarily reject the artwork, but it has a stain, and you have to acknowledge the stain. You have to see it, you have to live with it. And that is kind of how I think of it.
Yeah. I'm wondering, for you, from going from when you got that phone call and you had to take a walk around the block to now on the other side of it, you've just been like sort of floating in this, you know, amniotic sack of Joni Mitchelldom.
Well, the sack was big because, first of all, I have to tell you, I got really into jazz fusion. I wrote a 27,000-word chapter on jazz fusion.
Nice.
Thank goodness for editors, because y'all don't have to read that. But
I feel like anything on jazz fusion needs to be at least 25,000 words long in respect for the
just
form.
like the songs, right? Exactly. But I got so into like all this obscure stuff around her too. That was really that was the beautiful part.
But the thing that I would be afraid of, or maybe you weren't because she wasn't straight down your lane, is after 5-6 years working with the subject, what do you do when you pull out Hissing of Summer Lawns or a Joni? Like, is it over for you?
Oh,
with her?
no.
What does it feel like to
absolutely.
listen to her now in a casual capacity?
Oh, I just feel so smart. I know all about it.
You got to be insufferable at a barbecue. Somebody puts Joni Mitchell on, it's like...
Actually.
Got 30 minutes?
Yeah. That's Ann Powers, everyone. The book is Traveling on the Path of Joni Mitchell.
That was Ann Powers, recorded live at Benaroya Hall in Seattle. You can check out her book, Traveling on the Path of Joni Mitchell, wherever you get your books. All right, we have to take a very quick break here on Livewire, but don't go anywhere. Speaking of music, up next we'll hear an incredible song from Khatumu. More Livewire coming your way in just a moment. Welcome back to Livewire from PRX. I'm Luke Burbank here with Elena Passarello. Okay, before we get to this week's musical performance with Khatumu, a little preview of what we are doing on the show next week. We're going to talk about this very surprising and kind of unexpected project that Dylan Marin did. Okay, he is the guy behind a podcast called Conversations with People Who Hate Me. This is what he did. He found mean comments that were written about him or other people on the internet, And then he called up those commenters, the people that wrote the mean stuff, to figure out what exactly was going on with them. And he found out some really surprising stuff. We're also going to talk to musician Brittany Davis, who will explain how being a blind person made music their first language. And then we're going to hear a song from Brittany. That's all next week on Livewire. This week, our musical guest is a 23-year-old alternative folk singer-songwriter who had a breakout hit, Hunting Days, that went super viral on TikTok. Her EP, Free Therapy, was released this spring, and she's probably maybe the only one-time Yale Whiffenpoof we've ever had on the show, which is the country's oldest a cappella group. She's performed hundreds of times with them. This is Khatumu, who joined us at the Alberta Rose Theater in Portland, Oregon. Take a listen.
Hi.
Hello there. Okay, I have to admit, I spend far too much time on TikTok, and I was seeing your music on TikTok, and I was really excited that you were going to be on the show. But it was news to me, talking to the producers, that there were rumors that you were like an industry plant. Do you take that as a compliment?
High praise. Yeah, one of my friends sent me like a Reddit post that was like industry plant, and I was like, oh my God. So I thought it was funny.
You're not part of that pop music, folk music machinery that is Yale Whiffenpoof into
Pipeline.
the pipeline.
I wish it would make my life so much easier if there was a huge budget behind what I do, but there's unfortunately not. So,
what was that like with all those performances with the Yale a cappella group, which is like a really well-known group? And I mean, did you learn a lot about music and performing from that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was so fun. Also, for people that don't know, it's tenor, baritone, bass. So I was singing pretty low in my register, and it was like pretty much all guys. But yeah, I mean, I learned a lot, and harmony is super cool. I don't know if anyone here has ever done a cappella. College a cappella is
I would
crazy.
say most of these people have.
This is actually just one big a cappella group. They sound amazing.
Some of them were just doing it outside the theater for money earlier.
Yeah.
Was it like being in the movie Pitch Perfect?
Oh, exactly like it. Exactly like it. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the song we're going to hear.
So I just graduated in May, and
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, and I like dated some guy from Belfast, and we broke up, and I was very heartbroken. And this was one of the first songs that I wrote. And over COVID, I got really into songwriting, and this song is called Allergy Season, and it means a lot to me and my friends. We all like jam it when I'm back in New Haven. It's fun.
This is Khatumu on Livewire.
You had me over unannounced, and my nose was bleeding. It was allergy season. You put your hands up my blouse. I can't explain the feeling, but it was like now a new house, the faint smell of cut grass, and your laugh with your head on my breastbone. Like an old porch, a wood swing, a shared kiss in a backseat, a tent set up 5 feet from the shore. So when you went and talked to your friends, and they thought I was a dead end, you couldn't tell me then what you're telling me now, that you used me to figure out what you didn't want and what you didn't need, no. So I'm tired of wishing you were with me, delusional as it sounds. I hate that I love when you're around. I'm tired of thinking you still miss me, and I hate the way that I sound when all this love bug things keep coming out of my mouth. I guess it's allergy season now. You know I'm like a soldier's wife. You could die on me, but I still wouldn't believe it, no. But I would learn to make a necktie so I could practice you leaving. But from my new house to your old job on 8th Street, the parking is empty, so you sit alone in the backseat, thinking about an old porch, a wood swing, a shared kiss that you missed 'cause your mind was wandering. So when you thought you kind of felt boxed in, how could I hear through the silence? I guess my love was never enough. It's kind of selfish to bluff for what you didn't want and what you didn't need, no. So I'm tired of wishing you were with me, delusional as it sounds. I hate that love when you're around. I'm tired of thinking you still miss me, and I hate the way that I sound when all these love bug things keep coming out of my mouth. I guess it's allergy season now. Oh, look, I never noticed you wanted out, and I can really take rejection. Like, maybe use your words and I wouldn't seem this crazy. Maybe I'm the girl that you just keep around and call when you're feeling down, 'cause I'll never figure out I meant nothing to you. Is that true? No, it can't be, 'cause I'm sitting where we used to, under the canopy, and now it's 2022 and I'm still sneezing. The same love bug this allergy season.
Thank you very much.
That was Khatumu right here on Livewire, recorded live at the Alberta Rose Theatre in Portland. Their EP, Free Therapy, is out now. All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Livewire. A big thanks to our wonderful guests, Kenji López-Alt, Ann Powers, and Khatumu. Special thanks this episode to the Hotel Sorrento in Seattle.
Laura Haddon is our executive producer, Heather D. Michelle is our executive director, and our producer and editor is Melanie Sevchenko. Our technical director is Eben Hoffer, with assistance from Ness Royster. Hazik bin Ahmad Farid is our assistant editor, and our house sound is by D. Neil Blake. Ashley Park is our production fellow.
Valentine Keck is our operations manager. Andrea Castro Martinez is our marketing associate, and Ezra Veenstra runs our front of house. Our house band is Ethan Fox Tucker, A.L. Alves, Mike Gamble, Danny Ailey, Zach Domer, and A. Walker Spring, who also composes our music. This episode was mixed by Eben Hoffer and Hazik bin Ahmad Farid.
Additional funding provided by the Oregon Arts Commission, a state agency funded by the state of Oregon and the National Endowment for the Arts. Livewire was created by Robin Tenenbaum and Kate Sokoloff. This week, we'd like to thank member Joan Cirillo of Portland, Oregon.
For more information about our show or how you can listen to our podcast, head on over to livewireradio.org. I'm Luke Burbank. For Elena Passarello and the whole Livewire crew, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.